What's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. We finally got AMD frame generation in Cyberpunk, and in this video, we're going to be testing it on the Steam Deck OLED. CD Projekt Red recently put out an update adding FSR3. It's not FSR 3.1, but along with this update, we do get frame generation. It works on the Steam Deck. It can really up the frame rate. I've been messing around with it for a little bit now, and I've come up with some settings that I personally like to use, so I figured I'd go ahead and show those off. Now, in order to get a better look, I will be plugging this into my game capture. So if you want to get frame generation up and running with Cyberpunk 2077 on the Steam Deck, let's jump into it. Okay, so before we get into frame generation here with Cyberpunk 2077 on the Steam Deck OLED, I just wanted to give you a reminder on how it ran before with no frame generation enabled. Right now, we're at 800p Steam Deck preset, and I am plugged into my game capture, so it might look a little off. FSR 2.1, FSR is set to balanced, and with that Steam Deck preset, it does take some of these up to high, but high and medium. To tell you the truth, I usually drop these down to medium anyway with no frame gen, but I know a lot of people will be playing this at that stock Steam Deck preset, so I wanted to show it off here. And we can get an average of around 43 FPS with this. It's still really playable, but we can get a lot more using frame gen. So this was just added to the game. We don't need any special software or anything like that. What we're going to do here is head into settings. And right here, we now have the option to use frame generation. So this is actually FSR 3, not 3.1. And this went to performance for some reason. We'll just leave it there. Custom, but it's still that Steam Deck preset. Only thing we enabled here was frame gen, and that swapped over to FSR 3 performance. Usually we're at balance, but I'm going to leave it here. We'll see what this thing does. Now, once we apply this, we will have to restart the game to enable frame generation. So I'm going to choose OK. We'll just go ahead and exit the game and restart it. Okay, frame generation is now enabled, and you can see up in the top left-hand corner, we're hitting over 60. Now, every once in a while, you will see it dip down. Before, we had an average of around 43 across the board. We're now seeing an average of around 63, 62. Looks pretty good, and for some reason, it did take our FSR 3 to performance, which I know a lot of people might not want. So actually, let's go ahead and change that to balanced. Now, I do run in performance mode because I know what kind of hardware we're working with here. But let's see what it does. Balanced. Frame gen, Steam Deck preset, FSR 3. So yeah, not too bad. We definitely got a nice FPS increase over using no frame gen, but we can get more out of this. When it comes to frame generation, it still needs to hit up that GPU because it needs to generate those extra frames. So one thing I've noticed here to keep it a little more stable and get a little better performance out of it is setting a static GPU clock. Manual GPU clock. 1600 megahertz, and we'll see what this does. Yeah, it definitely gave us a nice little increase setting that static GPU clock because, again, that GPU has to generate those extra frames. So the higher that clock, the more power that GPU's getting. Theoretically, the better performance we can get out of frame generation. But even then, we can actually make this run much better. Like I mentioned with that Steam Deck preset, sets a lot of this stuff to high and medium. Personally, I don't mind playing this game at low, especially on the OLED screen. I still think it looks good. So we're going to test this out at low. Once we change this quick preset, what it's going to do is disable frame gen. We'll just re-enable it. Keep it at balanced. It may tell you that you need to restart, but we really don't because we already had frame generation enabled. And now we're getting over 70 FPS with Cyberpunk 2077 on the Steam Deck OLED, which is great. And again, on that smaller screen, I think low still looks really good. I've still got that GPU statically locked at 1600 megahertz. Really helps out with frame generation here. But this is definitely a big upgrade from no gen on the Steam Deck when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077. And just to give you a better idea, I did run the built-in benchmark, and this is really not indicative of real-world game performance because there's a lot going on. In these benchmarks, you're not in an overpopulated area, so these frame rates usually come out to be a bit higher. But we're locked at a 15 watt TDP, 1600 MHz GPU clock, Steam Deck preset 800p. On the left, FSR 2.1 balanced. On the right, FSR3 balanced with frame gen on. No frame gen, average of 47. With frame gen on and the benchmark, we got an average of 72 FPS. So yeah, frame gen is definitely helping here with Cyberpunk 2077. Give it a try. I mean, it's a free update. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to have any special software installed. If you don't like it, you can always disable it, play the game how you were. But I think this could definitely help out a lot of people. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Really appreciate you watching. I'm hoping for some more AAA titles to adopt AMD's frame gen technology in the settings because it can really help out with these iGPUs. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching.